I can't hear you.
I very nearly hit all the right buttons. We came so close to today, everything actually running smoothly. But no, I don't think it's ever going to happen.
It's okay. We're the only ones watching on YouTube, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, fantastic. Well, thank you to those of you who have joined on LinkedIn and indeed on Substack, where we're now also broadcasting this show. You lucky, we're everywhere. You can't hide.
You can't escape us.
That's not true. We're not on TikTok. I can't work that out. It's there's too many buttons and flashing lights. I think I've accepted this month that I'm officially in an age category where I'm not supposed to get it, and that just has to be okay. You know.
Welcome, Tom. We're glad to have you.
Oh, this is not a club anyone wants access to. You're there, and you just kind of accept that it's going to happen regardless, right?
I've heard it's the same with like getting your bifocals, your readers.
Oh, marvellous. Well, with all of that in mind, welcome to this month's show that I promise you is about real, like, up-to-date technology and exploring important things and not just grumbling. Thank you for joining us, wherever you are joining us. In today's show, we're going to be really exploring kind of three things. First of all, we're going to start with AI, but bear with us. It's an important conversation. You know, we're not going to tell you that don't worry, you can all be replaced with AI. We're going to have what is probably an important conversation for us to be having about authoring tools, AI, and pricing models. Then I've got some reflections on the award winners showcase that was held here in the UK recently for the some of the gold and silver winners of the Learning Technologies Awards, some of the sort of takeaways I got from that. And then it's been a few weeks, so it's probably time to have a little chat about the Global Sentiment Survey and what it tells us about life in L&D this year. Heidi, I'm going to hand over to you for our first topic, AI authoring tools and pricing models.
Yes, so as it was brought to my attention in the useful L&D community recently, Articulate let their users know, and of course it had to be brought to my attention because I'm not a user, but that they let their users know this month that when their plan renews, whenever that happens this year, that they will be opted into the AI pricing tier that they currently have. That's a bit more than their regular pricing tier, regardless of whether or not the users will be employing the AI features. So people were upset, obviously, because they're saying, well, what if we're not using those AI features? Why should we still be locked into that AI pricing? And so it raises a question, first of all, of how are companies going to keep kind of justifying this, like opting people into certain tiers, or even the use of AI is, if some companies I know are cracking down from like a GDPR SOC 2 compliance standpoint, are people, what are kind of the rules? Can you force somebody into using an AI version of your software if their IT team doesn't allow that kind of thing, right? And then what I pointed out in a LinkedIn post was the fact that you can buy 4 different tools that are pretty together, like can create some pretty amazing things for e-learning. The example I specifically gave was Camtasia, Canva, Parta, and Mindsmith. You could buy all 4 of those tools on an annual subscription, and you would still save money compared to Articulate's AI tool. So the other question that it brings up is, at what point is sunk cost in a legacy tool become too much? And I think we're kind of seeing that hit for some teams. I can't hear you.
Sorry, I'm just trying to get us live in various places. We're having some tech
Perfect.
problems in the background, but I completely agree, and it's isn't it interesting that I am a user? I am a paying customer. I had no idea this was happening. Not a Scooby Doo. So when you reached out to me, it led to quite a bit of, should we say, kind of panicked looking around and figuring out how this applies to me. I still don't really know, is the honest answer.
Sure.
Um, the biggest thing that strikes me is and maybe I'm, again, this might be a I'm old and out of date situation, but it seems like an own goal to push an expensive technology that actually, if we're honest, when you look at Articulate AI offering, it's not useful. Like, it's difficult because having worked in product, I know that people will have worked very hard in the background on these features. But whoever told you these were the
Yeah.
features that you should build was wrong. Because they are not even vaguely useful. Even the concept of them is bad. Rapidly generate multiple choice questions. That was not a problem that needed fixing. Generate an AI image. AI images
Yeah.
are not useful from a training perspective because they're not reliable or like consistent enough. One day maybe they will be, but right now they're not. It
Yeah.
just doesn't make any sense. And when you're already pretty much the most expensive tool on the market, inflating your rates at a time when everyone's struggling, even businesses are saying, what can we cut? You know? Like I would get if this was just going to be a slap for independent consultants or freelancers, because as I've said before, I may be one of those, I don't like it, but I'm not their ideal customer. I'm a pain in the arse
Right.
customer, quite frankly. I buy one license and I expect the same level of service as someone who buys hundreds of licenses. That's fine.
Understandably.
But this scales really badly for those who do buy hundreds of licenses, but almost none of which will be using the AI features. So to be forced to pay for it, I think it's a properly serious own goal, I think. Um, I'm not sure, kind of. I mean, do you think there's an argument for this? Do you think there's an argument to say this is the right way to go?
Well, I guess from a business perspective, if you're talking about simplicity of pricing, maybe, um, simplifying the tiers. Um, but I don't know. I can't really see a benefit. Especially because they're also launching, Articulate is also launching guides and labs. And I have a major issue with this. And I've spoken out about this too, because guides are groups of experts who are volunteering their time, or guilds. I'm sorry, I think it's called guilds, not
Yeah,
guides.
I know what you mean.
Um, But the guilds are groups of experts who are volunteering their time to create a series of templates in different, like customer education, sales enablement, in different facets, right, of L&D. And they're not being paid. They're being asked, like the page to sign up looks like a job description. It reads like a job description. There are specific dates, there are hourly requirements, there are like things that you have to agree to show up for. And then Articulate owns those templates at the end of that. And they get to use that as additional customer education for their customers that they did not have to pay for. And the labs are where they let users try beta features first, which means they're not paying for user testing. They're now using their customers as user testing. So the problem I have is that on the front end, they're raising the prices and they're citing AI and costs and rising costs and things like that. When on the back end, the L&D industry is suffering right now. People in the L&D industry are having a hard time. And on top of it, they're exploiting free work from people under the guise of community and volunteer and, oh, it'll feel so good for you to do this, when it's really just adding to their bottom line.
I mean, and this is difficult, right? I've always had uh, this slight unease with the whole Articulate Heroes community. First of all, I think the community and the people in it, phenomenal. You are all collectively
100%.
awesome.
100%.
However, you are being relied upon as de facto tech support. Almost every time I have ever gone to Articulate for any kind of question support problem, they have sent me a link to a non-Articulate employee's post in the forum.
Yes.
And again, this is tricky because there are companies that do this that I really don't have a problem with them doing it. But they are companies with a long, proud history of being on the consumer's side. Now, companies exist to make money. We've had this conversation before, blah, blah, blah. But that does. I think there is a path you can walk where you can do this stuff. But that path is not the path that Articulate has chosen to walk over the years. They are, they are what Cornerstone is to the LMS space. In my view. They don't get to play the plucky community player, in my view. And the amount of money that I'm spending, and yes, it's one license, blah, 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 but the amount of money I'm spending, quite frankly, I should be getting top tier support. If they're going to charge this much for a tool that is... The tool itself is, I would suggest, as popular as it is because it's ingrained. If you launch that tool new today, it would not win. It would not be popular.
No.
There is too much competition around it. But it's very difficult to move away from because all your content is authored in it, so you end up... It's a bit like buying into like an Apple ecosystem or whatever it might be. Once you're in, it's very difficult to leave, even if you no longer really want it. And I appreciate that's like my perspective. I spoke to some people, they absolutely love working in Storyline. They genuinely enjoy it. They think it's the right tool for their business. That's awesome. That's absolutely fantastic. But I do think that experience is becoming less common. Certainly now I have a hard time justifying, if a customer isn't already an Articulate house, I will not say, let's use Articulate. Like, there is no world in which I recommend it.
Agreed.
Which is sad. Yeah. That didn't used to be the case.
Also, yes. Yep.
But I can see a couple of people coming in actually with...
I know, we've got comments on Substack and on YouTube, Tom. Both.
This is...
I can barely even keep track of both of them.
This is... By which you mean there's like a comment. This is...
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine.
So thank you for getting involved, because this is the great thing. It's so often it's just us sharing our views. So thank you for sharing yours. We've got some people saying that they really like the AI features. So what have we got? We used to use 11 labs, but the workflow outside of Articulate was a pain. Despite what Tom says, image generation isn't awful. That's if you find it useful, that's awesome, and it's so dependent on your use case. So like the prime example is that, like, for instance, when I'm creating learning now, it will either be stuff for my business that we are training out to people, and I'm not going to lie, as a vendor, the standard is higher. There is no good enough. You have to create a polished product at launch when you're
Yeah.
in the vendor side of things. Or I work with a lot of organizations who have incredibly strict brand standards, internal and external. And I've personally found no matter how much I'm sure there is an amount of prompting and setup you could do to get there. It's just easier to open Photoshop and edit an image in my experience. Um, and again, that is coming from the perspective of I've got access to stock libraries, I've got access to an Adobe license or an equivalent thereof, and I've had the time to develop the skills to do that. So I would caveat all of that with I don't need what an AI image generator offers because I can make, or someone in my company can make whatever we need. That's that's
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
space where that view is coming from.
That's similar to what Pete said on Substack here, where he says he's not offended by Storyline's image generation, but he often has to download and edit it and then upload it again, which kind of defeats the whole purpose, right?
Yeah. This is it. I would much rather, because thing is, even with this AI stuff, I'm going to be paying for stock libraries and Adobe because it does other stuff for me. Not all my work happens in Articulate. If I want to edit a video, I'm going to be doing that in Premiere Pro or DaVinci Resolve. I'm going to need stock images, stock video, stock music. There's no, for me anyway, in my workflow, there is no getting around those other tools. And I think in a lot of workflows, if you do multimedia work, Articulate is not it. At the very least, you might want Camtasia, something like that. But it is going to be more of a personal thing. Personally, I have yet to see a course containing AI images that it doesn't look a little bit, lowest common denominator. And again, that is, I have not yet seen. Not that there aren't any, not that it's impossible, but that I have not seen them. And certainly, currently, they stand out as not looking great, the ones that I've seen. But there's every chance there are people out there. Christopher might be a good example of people who are getting fantastic results out of it. It's all about use case. And again, when you share an opinion, you can only share your own, as it were.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's the big thing for me is that, if people do feel that it's worth the money, the additional money, that's great. But then they should make that choice, right? That should be a consumer choice, not something that they're kind of like backed into.
And this is interesting. This was something when I was working as a product manager at Thrive, it was early stages of AI, it's a big thing, it's here right now. And everyone was suddenly trying to implement AI. And I'm very proud of the work that the company did and that our team did, because we worked very hard to say, hold on a minute, how do we make sure that what we do gives our customers, the businesses buying the platform, choice over time? So that meant not tying it into one provider. You could use whichever background AI provider you wanted to, whether that was OpenAI or Anthropic or Google or whoever else comes up along the way. That was really important. We didn't want to tie people into whatever model we thought was best. But also, how do we fix real problems? And that, if I'm honest, that's my real gripe with the Articulate stuff, is that none of the things they have implemented solve actual instructional design problems. None of them make the learning more effective. Now, it has been mentioned that there's the Ali on Substack has mentioned that she likes the automated captioning that will save her 2 to 3 hours a month. I'll be honest, I don't think I've ever manually captioned a video inside Storyline. The caption editor in Storyline has always driven me absolutely mad. I remember attending a course to learn how to use it and then saying I am never going to use that because that's a mad way of captioning. So if they've automated that sounds sensible. If you think it's pretty accurate, that's awesome. Again, workflow. at play here. I caption everything at the point of creating the video in Premiere Pro or DaVinci Resolve, export the caption file, and import it. One thing that kind of gives me that I always quite like is I've then got the caption file and video file separately, because it's very rare that that video will only end up existing in Articulate. I'll tend to drop it into another location at some point, so it can be streamed if someone's not going to go through the SCORM process, or if we're creating an accessible alternative to a SCORM file. We'll take that somewhere else. But hey, if it can help with things like closed captioning, absolutely awesome. I must admit I've not played with that. Here we go. Recently, an add-on for Rise came out with a find and replace feature that's been requested in Articulate community since 8 years ago. Good lord. Oh, thank you for sharing that, Zainav. Find and replace, isn't that an exciting feature for Articulate to have clocked onto?
Oh yeah, and Zainab's got more research on Articulate Rise's features over the years as well, which is really interesting, about how they haven't really done a lot of big ticket, big impact updates. They've been more like kind of vanity updates to make it, appear that they're doing a lot of change and a lot of updating and a lot of modernization. So I think if anybody has ever heard of the book Enshittification, it's a very, very interesting take on why when software companies get to the number one spot, it's like they just kind of don't really care about their customers anymore, and they care more about the profits, and they just kind of let the tool fall apart. And it is a great title. And it spends way too long trying to convince you in the book, in my opinion, that like Google, Microsoft, all these big companies aren't really there for you. They're there for themselves. And I'm like, you didn't need to spend the whole first 5 chapters convincing me of that. I was already on board. But it's very interesting how they talk about how, like, first they put the partners at a disadvantage, or like the investors, because they want to build a really strong customer base. So they build a lot of like trust and reliability, but they always benefit as a company. And then they just shift that so that the partners and investors now have to start benefiting, because hello, they're not going to keep investing you if they don't benefit at some point. But then the person who eats the cost of that becomes the customers. And it's a really interesting economical explanation for, I think, what we're seeing here as well.
Yeah, and you can see this everywhere, right? Like YouTube, I think, is one of the best examples of that. Like, have you noticed how YouTube now just occasionally will change your default resolution down to like 240p to see if you notice?
Really?
Yeah, occasionally you'll watch a video and go, this seems really low quality, and you'll click in, it'll be set to the lowest resolution. Like, I find it does it every 10 to 15 times I load it, and I'll go, no, we're setting that back to 4K. I pay for premium. I want to get my money's worth. But all that is because actually so many people watch their content second screen, have it playing on a phone, whatever, that they can save a lot of money by only streaming 240p video to you versus high resolution. And a lot of people, will argue that, oh, that's totally legitimate, blah, blah, blah. But it's not, is it? Like, the service offering is, this video is free, we will stream it to you, don't worry about it, there are ads. Well, if that's the business model, don't then start messing with the resolution. When I told you I want to watch it at 1080p, just do that.
Right.
But again, when you get that big, you're not going to be able to grow. There's no new market for YouTube to break into.
Yes.
So they're going to have to try and make more money with what they've got, which means saving money. Absolutely. Ali here, that's what's happening with AI now. It's way underpriced overall. Thank you. Yes. It's way underpriced as a loss leader, but costs will rise, like we've seen things like streaming. I think this is the uncomfortable bit that the whole AI conversation is missing, is that what we're getting right now, the price, it's starting to get a little bit expensive, so that you have seen nothing yet. The only thing that gives me some hope, actually, I think it was earlier this week or last week, and this is properly nerdy and nothing to do with L&D, so I apologise. You can look it up if you're interested. ARM have announced they're manufacturing their own CPUs now, specifically created for high-density data centres at about half the power cost of standard x86 CPUs.
Oh, wow.
I told you this was nerdy stuff. But Arm are a super cool company. They're behind basically every chip in a mobile phone, or all the new Apple Silicon stuff that's really low, like high performance but low energy use. So that might be the only thing that brings down the future cost of data centers and all that sort of stuff, which might save us some money in AI in the long run. But that's 5 to 10 years thinking. In the meantime, I think we're in for a bit of a shock when pricing adjusts. But cool. Anything else on? Just to get quick thing from Christopher here. Maestro is doing loads of stuff that Articulate should be focusing on. Yes, they are. The Mighty plugin is fantastic for Rise. As by the way, if you want an alternative, FireMods, FireMods by Chris Hodgson is actually available for free on GitHub. And allows you to do loads of cool stuff in Rise.
Oh, cool.
Things like adding kind of reflection bits where you can type in reflection notes and download as a PDF. He's changed that, giving you additional control over things like completion buttons, do some silly stuff like have confetti fly out of the screen when you click a button. But just really fun, simple stuff to slightly improve the look and feel of Rise and to add some cool new functionality in. So yeah, some really nice stuff, and it's available free, which is the nice thing. It takes a little bit of figuring out, but can't complain.
I know when you said GitHub, I was like, oh, that free open source, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he does do a paid version of it that is like £4 a month, where he set it all up on a website for you. But
There
even
you go.
he's just
Yeah,
like, just
that makes
download the
sense.
free one. It's fine. But if you can't manage the faff about, I think you can even use his hosted one for free if your file is less than like 100 megabytes. So
Oh, nice.
check it out. FireMods, well worth a look. With all that in mind, then shall we move on from the AI-ness?
Yes.
Our two other topics then. First up, last week, or possibly no, it is last week. Last week, I attended the Learning Technologies Award Winners Showcase, which is hosted by the Learning Network each year. It was really weird because it was my first year not being on the board of the Learning Network and going to the event, but it was very enjoyable. No responsibility. It was fantastic. What the event basically is some of the gold and silver winners from the Learning Technologies Awards back in November, talking about their project, what they did, how they achieved it, and what impact it's had in their business. So it's one of those
cool.
really nice, rare moments where you can kind of benchmark your efforts in the space against other people doing great work. So with that in mind, I just thought I'd share some of the commonalities that I spotted among award winners. And the biggest one that was like, it was very evident, very front and center, was, my God, they knew their data. They knew exactly what the numbers were around the original problem, exactly how every decision they had made in their training design, in their intervention design, aligned to the specific behaviors that in turn connected to the specific KPIs and the business numbers. They could tell you how any decision they had made linked to that impact point. And they had, some of them, nearly 2 years of impact data to say, this didn't just have a 3-month blip, this had a clearly measured impact on the organization over a prolonged period of time. It was a real kind of example of that this can be done. And every one of them, when questioned in their sessions, was like, yeah, it's really difficult. It's really complicated. It took a lot of time and a lot of effort and a lot of energy, but it was important that we did it. So that's one thing I think it really stood out among these award winners. Another thing that was really common was that they did not really they did not scale something that already existed in the business. Every one of them pretty much came up with something genuinely unique. And for some of them, that was something that might sound very ordinary, like peer mentoring groups following a training intervention. They'd never done it before, but now they have them, and they have these kind of like circles in the business where people get together and discuss their work and support each other about specific topics, like circles of practice, basically. another award winner who was tasked with improving data fluency around data visualizations as part of the company's drive to get a better handle on data, preparing for AI and all that kind of thing. They partnered with an art school. They partnered
Oh,
with an
wow.
art school for a whole year. And the people going through the training were tasked with creating data visualizations from some form of data in the form of art that could be displayed in an exhibition at the company at the end of the training period. So some of them took business data, some of them took like their sleep
Interesting.
data from their smartwatch and painted a
Huh.
picture to represent the data. Um, but it was proper data visualization work. So you had the classic kind of shapes layered on, color, size, all being used, different forms of data visualization. But rather than just tapping away into a computer and then printing them off, they had to get hands on and creative and make something that could. And the criteria
Nice.
was it needs to be a piece of art that can be put on display. That's a very broad criteria. But it also needs to clearly communicate the data. Someone needs to be able to look at it and actually understand the point that you're making. And it was just the alongside this they had like lectures on data visualization and understanding data and lectures on art. And
Oh,
different
nice.
they had access to the resources of this art school to go and whether it was paint or some of them were painting, some of them were drawing, some of them were using CNC routers to make like hanging elements from the ceiling to display data. And this all sounds like lovely and creative and blah blah blah, but wasteful is kind of the immediate. Oh, this is over the top, blah blah blah. The impact it had on their business, they were like by their internal sort of calculations, they generated an additional $2 million of productivity. Now, productivity, not cash in the door, so it's a bit of a. I want to say productivity is a fudged figure, but it's a figure that should be treated with a. This is not real money. This is we think kind of based on past
Hypothetically, yeah.
comparisons, but
Yeah.
that is a significant amount of additional, additional work happening, and a lot of that sat in the number of people within the business who were suddenly comfortable working with data because they had spent so long doing it, it became second nature. They also had all these kind of observational kind of points around managers saying, so how often are you asked for the data by your team? And that graph just freaking skyrocketed. So they had this really nice combination of, yes, linking in the arts, and they actually spoke a lot in their award talk about the number of people who had left comments like, I've always wanted to paint, but I've never known how to get started. This was an amazing opportunity. And yes,
Oh,
I've learned a lot
wow.
about data, but I'm now taking painting lessons. Or I've now
Oh,
set up a.
wow.
And so it's like, this was data visualization training that has meaningfully enriched these people's lives.
Yes.
So
Go
yes,
figure.
yeah, yes, there's all this productivity improvement, but just hearing this, wouldn't you like to work there? Like, what an
Well,
advert for a career in that company.
absolutely. And like what I'm hearing you say is like, these are obviously award winners, right? So this obviously had an impact. It was obviously something that they were like, "Go tell people about how awesome this is." And like just from a logical perspective, don't you think that if the add more clicky things, add more drag and drops, add more interactions, that'll engage them, that'll be impactful, that'll make them remember it? Don't you think if that were the solution, that we'd be hearing more about it, that we'd be hearing about these productivity things, that we'd be hearing about these massive gains, that people would be able to have that time to find the work life balance, right? Because I think there's something important here is that it's not just about like the data visualization. There was something where it was showing like respect and honoring the employee through the process, not only their time, but saying like, yes, we appreciate your time doing this, but in addition to that, we're going to let you do something for your own personal enrichment as part of that, right?
Yeah.
And those are things that have kind of gone away since, remember when I worked at a tech company not 3 years ago, that one of their things was you got a $40 book stipend every month to spend on books. however you want it. They didn't even ask. They just needed the Amazon receipt or the thrift books receipt. It could be books for you. It could be books for your children. It could be books for your neighbor. It didn't matter. Right. But like, and we don't see that kind of thing anymore. We don't see those, some of the clients that I work with are like, we need more training. And it's like, people aren't taking the training. No, because everybody's burnt out. And now you just want to throw more clicky things at them and expect them to be less burnt out, And I just think that if we look logically and we think about one experience versus another and which one is more impactful, it just, I just don't think people are interested in what you described as the time and the effort and the knowledge that goes into creating an experience like that.
But I think, and I'll simplify this because otherwise it's like a 3 hour conversation, right? But I'll be fairly blunt with it. If we want to claim to be good at what we do, which I would hope we all do, we also have to acknowledge that our work is incredibly complex. It would be lovely if it
Yes.
was as simple as, we'll design it well and it will just work. People don't operate like that. When, there are, whether you draw from, this is why I'm a big evidence-informed practice person, as we all know at this point. I keep banging on about it, but like where we draw from industry and scientific research, professional experience, and contextual inputs from our specific users at the time. It's why we have to draw on all three, because it's messy, it's complicated, it's contradictory. I'm working in an organisation at the moment that I can't talk about too much because I'm under NDA, as you might expect, but a lot of my experience tells me to go in a very specific direction with what we're trying to achieve. But having met and spoken to the audience, they are fundamentally very different to most audiences. There are a couple of key things that make them a very challenging audience that means actually what I consider to be a proven, tested, time and time again process will not work with them. That's very difficult to walk into a business and immediately realise and admit. Because my life would be much easier if I went, well, this has worked in 100 businesses before now, there's no reason it shouldn't work here. There's every reason it shouldn't work here. Why would it work here? These are different
Yeah.
people doing different work in a different environment. Like, there is no reason that what I know should be transferable. They are still human beings, which is why having that link into the science world is so important, because what we can take with us is our basic understanding of, as much as we have one, about how human beings work. That becomes
Yeah.
transferable. It's why we need all three at all times. But yeah, if we aren't willing to accept that some of our, or all of our work really, but some of it's easier than others, right? But most of our work is complicated and messy and difficult and time consuming, we shouldn't be doing this. If we want a job that's easy,
Yes.
simple, straightforward, we should do something else. And I appreciate that's not like a pleasant message, but it is the truth. Like,
Wow. Usually I'm the one making statements like this. I love it.
but this,
But no,
this,
you're right. Yeah.
this is like,
Yeah. I'm sorry to tell you, but whoever told you that what we do is easy and is simple and it can be done by a caveman, right, is wrong. Because if that were true, our subject matter experts could do it on their own.
Exactly. If we want to claim there's a purpose for us existing, the job should be difficult.
Yeah.
Agreed. Otherwise, just give it to ChatGPT. If it's simple and straight line, pick an LLM, give it the content, tell it to design some learning. Or we accept that it's really complicated, really time consuming, and that we have to work really hard. Because what we're doing is worthy of being worked hard at. I thought some of those takeaways were really interesting. And my biggest complaint about awards across the board, and I say this as an awards judge, is that no one ever hears about the fantastic stuff these people are doing. There are very few stages that then say,
sure.
Cool, you've won an award, come and share it with the world. Instead, it's just a trophy that goes on LinkedIn and behind you on your next Zoom call. If you're watching this and you run awards, for the love of God, give your people stages. Get them out there. Get them talking about why they won an award and the incredible work they did. One, it justifies the value of your award system. And
True.
two, helps the whole industry level up by hearing from what, you would hope most judges, unlike me, are competent, and know what they're talking about. And so, that they should be the things that we look to say, where's the next step for me? Should I be organising an art exhibition in my organisation? Probably not a literal lift and shift, but could I be thinking bigger? Could I be thinking more holistically about the impact of this intervention, not just on this one question that they've asked me to look at, but on people's entire working experiences? Will people remember this intervention in 10 years' time? Will Tom and Heidi be talking about this intervention next year on the ID update?
Yes,
That's a lower bar to
they
set,
will.
but you might be able to achieve it. It's this is if if we were all thinking like that all the time, if every one of us with every intervention was saying, I want to be able to win a gold Learning Technologies Award or whatever your local equivalent to that award is, how much better would all of our work be? Just some thoughts. Um, and I guess with 20 minutes left, we can jump to our last topic, which will
There
be
we
less
go.
me just talking, I
Quite slow.
promise. um,
Wait, what? I
yeah, I know,
didn't
right?
agree to this.
So the Global Sentiment Survey, conducted by Don Taylor, it's been going for too many years at this point. No, not too many, but it's been going for a long time.
Too many to count.
This is it. What I just mean is I didn't look how long it's been going for and kind of trapped myself into that sentence and needed an exit. It's been going for a while, and I say that because one of the useful things there is we've got sort of comparative data points going back quite a way. For those who are unfamiliar, which I shouldn't imagine is many of you, but just for a quick recap, Global Sentiment Survey, each year Don asks us what's going to be hot in the next year. What are the 3 things you think are going to be big in L&D, in this case in 2026? And then what are the biggest challenges you're facing right now? And then they put out a fancy little table. I'm going to try and put that table up on the screen now.
Nice.
Look at that. Behold, the table. So, I thought we could just start by doing a quick run through of what's up, what's down, what this all means, and then maybe what we think that means for, where we are as an industry and what we're doing this year. In a shock to absolutely no one, AI is top of the table. Ever so slightly down, but only by 0.1%, so it's not really moved, really, let's be honest. But that means that 22.5% of people said AI was one of the big topics for the year. Don't think that shocks anyone. Coming in at number 2, though, reskilling and upskilling, ever so slightly up on last year, but no position change. Number 3, personalization and adaptive learning. That's up from number 4 the previous year. Skills-based talent management is now number 4, down from number 3, so that dropped, basically those two swapped. Number 5, showing value, up from 7 the previous year. Consulting more deeply with the business in at number 6, non-mover, it was 6 last year. Coaching and mentoring coming in at number 7, moving up from position 8 the previous year. Number 8, micro-learning, coming up from position 9. Number 9, learning analytics, falling from the 5th position. Interesting that we see showing value has moved from 7 to 5, but learning analytics has dropped from 5 to 9. Very strange. Collaborative and social learning, holding steady at position number 10. Once we get this far down the table, to be honest, there's not a lot of value, but pretty much everything here has stayed in the same place, except other and the metaverse have switched. The sooner we can get the metaverse off this list, the better. At the point when you're
Others
you're
above
scoring
the metaverse.
Oh God, yeah, exactly. But at the point when the metaverse is scoring 0.8% of response, can we just say that that's gone now, and that it was never really a thing? It's just
right.
a bit. It's kind of someone spent a lot of money and therefore it's clinging on in the world, but beyond that, it's done. So this is and this is what I always like to think about this. This is not what's the most important thing right now. This is what we collectively, as L&D professionals who responded to this survey, said we think is important and hot right now. So when we look at the top five: AI, reskilling and upskilling, personalization and adaptive delivery, skills-based talent management, and showing value. Heidi, what are your thoughts?
So I find it interesting. Also, I was just doing math too, by the way, using a calculator because I can't do
Ooh.
the math in my head, of course. That 0.8% of the sample size is like 30 people who voted for the metaverse. I'm interested in that there's 30 people, first of all. But outside of that,
I wonder if they all
I
work at Meta. That's
yes, probably. They all have properties in the metaverse that is shutting down. They have to get rid of them soon.
this is it.
Um One thing that I thought was very interesting is that learning analytics fell, but showing value increased, right? Because to
Yeah.
me, those are synonymous. Um, to me, those are so deeply intertwined that like you can't have one without the other, right? So I find it interesting that they're separate here, but I also find it interesting how it's shifted. And I think that maybe the reason for that is also this interest in AI peaking, right? And we're starting to kind of like move away from AI all over everything. And I think that people are kind of equating like numbers and data and analytics with like technological kind of like we're having a move back towards soft skills, if you will, like more human based skills, right? So that showing value, that having impact, consulting more deeply with the business, right? Those types of things, coaching and mentoring, those are becoming more prevalent, while the more technologically related things are becoming less.
Okay. I could see that being a thing. Part of me
But
wonders.
yeah, and
Oh, go on.
because learning analytics went from 5 to 9, right? Um, and that drop like that concerns me because you can't show value without those things, right? So it's great that people want to show value, but like that's one of the key components to that conversation, right? You know what I mean?
I think that's my concern. Is that are we just like we have always as an industry struggled to demonstrate value? I don't think this isn't a
Yes.
new problem. I think we're being pushed harder on it now. Companies are being less accepting, as they always should have been, of the slightly weak source impact metrics that they get given by L&D functions. Not all L&D functions, to be clear. I have worked with some and they've done phenomenal work. But on the whole, it is an industry wide weakness, I would suggest. And I wonder if the separation of those two in this just shows that we don't really understand what showing impact means. Um, because
Yeah.
interestingly, I went to an event in February that was all about this. It was three sort of hour and a half long workshops about all of this. And even within that room, there was a desperate mix of, well, can't, I've got, LMS data, that's how I'll show this, or just using testimonial data, or just using, measurement is a line manager and the business's job once I've delivered the intervention. Um, there is no shared, like, there is no shared gold standard or best practice, if it's applicable in this terminology, around doing this because it's not an established part of our role. It should be.
Mm,
And again, I stress there are people out there who will go, of course it is. We should do this and we should do that. And should is the operative word. Because in the vast majority of organizations, it's not happening. Um, and certainly for most of my career, it's been a real struggle to prove business impact or to even try to demonstrate likely business impact. Um, but as mentioned before, I think it's something we have to improve on. I'm glad that show value is up there, but I am sorry to see other things dropping.
Yeah, well, and I'm looking at the definitions as well, and it
Mm.
has the definition of showing value as demonstrating the performance improvements and business benefits that arise from L&D activities, which that's a fine definition. And then I look at the definition of learning analytics as well, used since at least 2012 in the educational field in workplace learning, the human as opposed to machine-based process of data-supported decision making to improve learning.
So this indicates to me that we're still fundamental. Well, first of all, important note: people do not have access to those definitions when completing the survey.
Yes, which I
So,
find is a miss.
I mean, it's
I
also
think that's one of
difficult.
the limitations of the survey. Yes.
But equally, people can type whatever they want in, so you can't really
Yes.
predefine it because they might be typing in, googly eyes. Googly eyes are the thing I think are going to be the hottest in L&D in 2026. Um,
Right.
More impactful than some stuff. Micro learning, for instance, just put wherever you got micro learning, just put a pair of googly eyes. It's just as effective. Um, but yeah, I just worry that and this is again why I like looking at this in the sense of what are we thinking like as an industry. The decoupling of those indicates that showing value is really important, but using the data to improve our own work is dropping in importance. I don't mind that it's ninth. It's a long list of things. Something's got to be ninth. Something's got to be sixth. Whatever. What I do worry about is that it's dropped 4 positions in 1 year. That's the concerning thing to me, and that it's dropping 4 positions whilst micro learning is climbing. Um,
Yeah.
that to
Yeah.
me is a big miss. Um,
Yeah. I agree. And performance support, just like hanging out at the bottom, like because I don't think people understand it. You know what I mean? Like I think I oh gosh, here I'm going to sign myself up for some research because I just had a really good idea.
mm,
Um, and it's to at random survey L&D professionals about what each one of these terms mean so that they're not all being surveyed about the same terms.
I like that.
But split them up and look at the individual definitions that you get and then use that as a measure of reliability validity for this survey specifically. um, I think that would be an interesting thing because I think what you would find is that each one of these different terms people define differently. And I think the other thing, the way that these terms are selected, to my knowledge from what I read, is that the least popular one usually gets dropped off and something else gets added on.
Yeah.
Um, um, but I'm laughing. I'm sorry. I'm laughing at Lauren's comment in the
Yes.
Substack that they don't know how to think like that. I know. I know. I had to take so many statistics classes as part of my PhD program. Okay, it was only 2, but that was so many. But to the like, where do these terms come from? How did they get added? Because also to Lauren's point, we don't have learning sciences on here.
Mm.
There's not like there's some it's an odd thing to not know how those terms are chosen, to not know how they're added to the thing. And is this something that has to be socialized with the sponsors? Is that like part of it? Because then do the sponsors have an influence on which terms get chosen? Because I know a lot of our research in the field is vendor influenced, right? For better or for worse, usually for worse.
Yes. Yeah.
Especially if you're a company that starts with S and makes AI avatar videos.
Yeah.
um,
I mean,
but
it's tricky. I mean, reading through this, I'm relatively confident in saying that I don't think this is the case here in terms of the sponsor influence. Um, However, um, it's impossible. Well, even if we could say for certain they absolutely didn't influence the writing of this, which I can't, I wasn't there, so I can't be like 100%, but I'm confident in saying I believe in the credibility with which this was written.
sure.
Um, what we can't say is how vendors have influenced the way we actually responded.
That too.
That because
That too.
that's what marketing is all about. We are,
That I guarantee you that is why micro learning is even on the list in
mhm,
the first place.
this is it. It's and that's why I say this is a very interesting exercise when you look at this report to think about why do we think the things that we think. And the other part of this report that I think really highlights this, and I am going to skip us onto this because we've only got 5 minutes left of today's report live stream. Dude, by the way, go to Don Taylor's website, download the report. Um, it's
I shared a
really
link to it in the
interesting.
Substack. I
Oh,
tried
brilliant!
to in the YouTube, but I don't think I did it properly in YouTube. So
I'll make sure
sorry to the
links
people in
go out
YouTube.
with the recording anyway, and it's in the set. But 5 key challenges. This is the other big question that is always interesting when this survey comes out. 5 key challenges this year: AI adoption and integration. That is not a challenge; it's just a piece of technology. Sorry, swipe over. Number two: demonstrating value and impact. But three:
Well,
budget and resource constraints. Four: learning engagement and application. And five: change, uncertainty, and L&D's new role. I mean, I've already shared my view on the first one. So just quickly for the others, I don't think our role has changed at all. I think we just misunderstood our role for a very long time. Our role
ooh,
is to facilitate performance in the organization. Everything else was and is a waste of time. Um, we can make people compliant, and we can make them competent, and we can make them confident. We should focus on doing those things and stop doing the things that we've never been good at. Um,
yes,
I, you know,
yes.
I can't be any more blunt than that about that one. And the others, I have less of an issue. I think they are challenges. I genuinely do. Change and uncertainty, to be clear, are challenges, but again, they're nothing new, but they are very
Yeah.
present now. Um, learning engagement and application, I do get that. Budget and resource constraints, yep, that's a. I would argue that's possibly one of our own making to a certain extent. And then demonstrating value and impact, as I say, forever a challenge. But no, the AI adoption and integration one, I really have an issue with. I don't think it's a real challenge. I think it is. We're being told it's a challenge that we must do by people selling us AI products.
Yeah,
Not
Allie called
not
it the
doing it.
shiny new thing challenge in
Yes,
the
that is
in
exactly
the
what it is.
yep.
What we need is an L&D parent to go, no, put it back on the shelf. We don't need that right now. If we don't, it might be that you've got an amazing use case for AI. I use loads of AI stuff. Just to be clear, it can be really useful, but it's not a challenge to integrate and use it. If I have a challenge, AI might be part of solving the challenge. The challenge itself is not using AI just because I have to.
Right.
So sorry, those are all my views on that. Heidi, the rest of the time is yours because I've talked a lot.
No, that's all right. I like to highlight the challenges that Lauren and I brought up in the chat, which
Ooh.
are teams being made redundant and the industry losing great minds. And I just talked to a couple people this week who are looking for work outside of L&D, even though they're brilliant and they're highly, highly qualified, but they cannot find work. And part of that is because they are women. And as we know, women now represent less than 20% of the C-suite in L&D, even though they represent 60% of the workforce below the director level. So I would say that those are some pretty big challenges. Those I would call that a crisis um, of our industry, and not enough people are talking about it. And hold on, let me tell you, in 2029, here's my prediction that 3 years from now, after Heidi's already been saying for the last 3 years we should focus more on these things, it'll work its way up the list, because that's what happened to showing impact. I've been talking about that for 10 years. But now people just want to act like, and it's really funny because I see all these chat GPT posts that go out that are like, it's not about the tools. And I'm like, yeah, that's what I've been saying. And obviously, Chat GPT has seen my LinkedIn and is telling you guys to post about the same thing. You're welcome for the content.
Oh dear. Yeah, and hopefully the message sinks in, because this is the thing. As much as like that message has been here for a while now, people have been saying it for a long while. but still we are often not dictated to. It's not as if someone's there going, you must build this, that, and the next thing. But we are, as an industry, we seem to be heavily shaped by the technology
Yes.
rather than shaping the use of the technology.
Yes.
So I think this,
Yes.
if anything, to me, this survey was a real clarifying call to say we need to reassess our relationship with technology in our industry, and
Agreed.
really consider who's in charge. Is it us defining what the best way to facilitate performance is, or is it technology saying, "Oh, look what you can make! Quick, make some and share it with everyone."
Yeah.
And we'd all like to say, "Oh, it's totally this and not the other," but we really need to take an honest look at what we're doing sometimes and just maybe challenge ourselves.
Agreed.
Well, that does bring us to the end of today's show. Thank you all so much for joining us across YouTube, LinkedIn, and Substacks. We even managed to go live on LinkedIn this time. It did work after an initial falling over
Oh,
of the
awesome.
platform. It was just slightly delayed. So wherever you've joined us, thank you for joining us. Heidi, is there anything you would like to shout out for the end of the show? Anything coming up in the next month or anything like that?
Not off the top of my head. Follow me on LinkedIn. I'll let you know.
Amazing. Well, I do. So
Great.
I'll just
Perfect.
plug away. If you haven't already and you are based here in the UK or can travel, do check out idtx.co.uk for the Evidence Informed Practice Conference on the 29th of May. It's going to be an incredible day hearing from scientists, researchers, and L&D practitioners on how we can best utilise some of the sciences of learning in what we do. It's a whole day of phenomenal speakers and workshops, plus an evening social has now been added, so there'll be some food and opportunity to relax at the pub, with some more like micro talks going into the evening from researchers and practitioners in the industry. Um, Thank you all so much for joining us once again. Do join us again next month, where we will try and do like a second time of streaming to everywhere, and I'll even try and run the intro sequence properly. So that would be a first ever event were that to happen. So join us then, don't miss out. And in the meantime, do make sure you connect with us on LinkedIn and have an amazing month. Bye. See, I told you the intro sequence was always going to mess me up. Bear with me, everyone. We're going to end the stream in just a moment.